Good morning. My name is Eli Howes. Can you please tell me your full name
My name is Huda.
and what should I call you?
Just call me Huda.
Okay, Huda, in this first part, I'd like to ask you some questions about yourself. Let's talk about where you currently live. Do you like the area that you live in now?
Yes, I absolutely love where I live. Currently, I'm living in Damascus, which is the capital city of Syria. It can be found in the southern part of the country.
Mm. And have you always lived in this city?
Yes, I was born and bred in Damascus, so I've been living here for almost more than 30 years.
And are people in your area friendly?
Yes, they are very friendly, and people who live in my neighborhood are quite affable people. They are always ready to give you a hand whenever you need some help.
Mm. Let's move on. Let's talk about staying up late. Now, do you often stay up late?
Yes, I do. I must admit that I am a night owl, and that's because I stay up late, especially during the past few weeks, because I was busy preparing for this test.
No. And did you stay up late when you were a child?
I can't actually remember, but I think I used to stay up late when I was a child only when we had special occasions like a wedding ceremony or a birthday party.
Why?
Mm, when I was a little kid, I had to wake up early because I had a school. I had school to go to, but when we had these events, I think I I wouldn't feel like I want to go to bed early. I
Mm.
just want to stay up late and spend some more time with my family. That's why.
And nowadays, what do you do when you stay up late?
Well, at this time or for the time being, I just grab my phone, my cell phone, and I scroll through my Facebook account.
Mm.
Other times I finish some unfinished housework, like doing the dishes or mopping the floor.
Mm. Let's move on. Let's talk about outer space and stars. Now, have you ever learnt about outer space and stars?
I don't think I have learned about these things when I was at school, but I've recently read something related to the space and astrology, and I feel that they are very interesting topics.
Are you interested in films about outer space and stars?
No, I'm not, because I find these movies boring, and I do prefer watching comedy movies or comic movies because when you want to watch a movie, you want to feel entertained, and I don't find such kind of movies entertaining.
And would you ever like to go into outer space in the future?
Well, given the chance, I would love to go.
Mm.
I think it would be interesting experience. People usually talk about that adrenaline rush that they feel when they do something new. So yeah, I feel like if I was given the chance, I would absolutely go.
Mm. All right, Huda, we're going to move on to part two. And in this part, I'm going to give you a topic and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say, and you can make some notes if you wish. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
All right. Remember, you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, so don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Whenever I think about an interesting old person um, whom I met, the first person who comes to mind is Frank Caprio. Frank works as a judge. He's a chief judge in Rhode Island, USA. And Judge Frank is 85 years old. and I believe that he is doing really well for his age. And he looks pretty much younger than he really is. So it's very funny because Judge Frank and I have something in common, and we were both born on the same date. We were both born on November 24th. I first knew about Judge Frank from Facebook. He's got a Facebook page, and he usually posts videos for himself in the courthouse where people come to him having speeding tickets and parking tickets. Let me tell you a bit more about Judge Frank. I think Judge Frank is a very kind person, and he is very well liked, by the way. Almost everyone loves him and like him because he's very lenient judge, and he's always smiling. He's not very strict. And the most thing I like about him is the fact that he is very kind hearted. And I believe that he has a heart of gold. So it was back in 2019, if my memory serves me right, when I got the chance to meet him. I was sitting in a restaurant, and all of a sudden I watched him, or I saw him coming to the restaurant. And I can't tell you how happy I was when I saw him. I just went to him, greeted him, and introduced myself, and asked him to take a picture.
Thank you. And have you told other people about meeting this judge?
Yes, sure. I told almost everyone about that meeting, and I still have that picture till now.
Thank you. So, we've been talking about an interesting old person you have met, and I'd like to discuss with you one or two more general questions related to this. Let's consider, first of all, how old and young people spend their time. Do you think there's a difference between the way that young people and old people spend their leisure time?
Yes, I think there is a huge difference because, the age gap between the two generations is very huge or wide. And so for some young people, I think they tend to spend more time outdoors, hanging out with the friends. But for old people, I think they do prefer to stay at home and spend some time reading, for example, or watching TV.
Do you think there are any activities that people should put into their daily routine, especially as they get older? For example, things that might improve their health or their ability to live longer.
Yes, I think it's a good idea to lead a healthy lifestyle when you are getting older. Because, when you get older, you may lose some of your physical strength, for instance. And I think workout and going for a gym, maybe, or going for a walk can help you to uh, lead that healthy lifestyle.
Mm.
I feel that elderly people should uh, eat healthy food or healthy diet because of course that will have a huge impact on their health overall.
Some people think it's the government's responsibility to provide exercise equipment that's easily accessible for old people. Do you think it is the government's responsibility to do that?
I would say it should be a shared responsibility between the government and the individuals. So maybe the government can subsidize some of these activities and provide elderly people with some exercise. And I think individuals also have a role to play here. They should be active and do some exercise on their own. So, yeah, all in all, I believe it should be something between individuals and governments. They should work together and uh, put their hands together to make sure that all people have more chances or opportunities to exercise. Yes.
Okay. Let's move on. Let's talk about responsibilities. Now, how do you think people's responsibilities change as they grow older?
A tricky question. I think as we get older, our responsibilities become more complicated because when you are younger, you you have almost no responsibilities. You just have to take some very simple decisions like what do you want to eat or where what do you want to wear. But when or as you get older, you should take more hard decisions like maybe you should uh, choose a partner to spend your life with and something like that. Yeah, I think responsibilities just get older or bigger
Mm.
as we get older.
And how do you think that we learn how to be responsible people? Do you think it's a case of learning from experience, or do you think it's something that is taught to us?
I think we can learn how to be more responsible by experience. You know, children have their parents as role models, and I think that parents should teach their children how to be more responsible in society. So I think that also grandparents can uh, participate in this process and just teach their grandchildren how to be more responsible. And they can be a very good example for them. And young generations can follow in their footsteps.
Mm.
So
Well, some people say that the biggest responsibility that humans can have is when they have children. Do you agree?
to some extent, yes, I do agree. Because when you have a child, you are responsible for almost everything about this child.
Mm.
So you should be responsible for their education, for their health, for everything. And it's a huge responsibility, I believe. So I think we should uh, look at this thing from the positive side and just imagine that we are in their place. Um, I think that parents can have a great influence on their children, and children and parents should cooperate together in order to build a new life or a new future for that child.
All right, thank you very much. That is the end of the speaking test.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. It's funny because we've done a few speaking tests before, Huda, and I always love that moment where I say, "Thank you very much." That is in the speaking test, and suddenly I can see your face changes completely. You go from serious Huda to suddenly happy Huda
Yeah,
very quickly. It's like,
I
it's
was glad
over. I
that
can
it
relax.
ended. Yeah.
Mm. But now we're doing the speaking test, or the not to practice, but just to show other people because you've actually already done your IELTS speaking test and you got 8.5 in the IELTS speaking test, which is incredible. How did you feel when you saw that score?
Well, I can't find an adjective that can describe my feelings because um, I think I was on cloud nine.
Mm.
When I looked at that 8.5, I was so happy. Um, and when the moment I got out from the test room, from the speaking test room, I knew that I did really well in the test. But I was expecting an 8. I wasn't expecting an 8.5.
Sure. How did
So
you
it
know?
was a surprise.
How did you know you had done so well?
Well, the questions in part 3 were getting progressively harder. And this is when I knew that, okay, the examiner thinks that I'm a high level student. That's why she was asking me some really hard questions.
Right, okay. So a bit like this test as well. I was trying to ask you progressively more difficult questions, but maybe in your real test were the questions even harder?
No, I think they were much easier than your questions.
Oh, okay. All right, okay. So, but yes, that is something the examiner is going to do is they're going to say, okay, this person's at a very high level. Let's see just how good their English is. And it's funny that when you got more difficult questions in part three, you actually felt a bit happy, right? Because you were like, "Oh,
Yeah,
examiner thinks I'm
yeah,
at a high level. That's why they're asking me these difficult questions,"
yeah.
which is a
I
good.
was relieved.
Mm.
Yes, yeah.
And did you have like a smiley examiner or a very stern examiner? Was it a woman? Was it a man?
Yeah, she was a woman and she was so friendly. She was smiling almost all the time, especially in part one. She was very friendly, kind. She was smiling. But then I felt in part two and in part three, that smile kind of disappeared. I think this is when she was thinking, like, where should I be? Am I a band seven or band eight or maybe higher than this?
You're right,
Yeah.
and you were in fact higher. You got band 8.5. So, I mean, in that case, you must have got band 9 in at least two of the criteria. So fluency, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. Which ones do you think you got band 9 in, and which ones do you think you got the band 8 in?
I think I got those nines in Lexis and in pronunciation.
Yeah. Nice.
Um, yeah, I think I got eight in the grammatical range at accuracy and in coherence and cohesion. Yeah.
You're right. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting because I was thinking for this test, yeah, I would agree with giving you that band 9 for pronunciation. And certainly your lexis is brilliant. Your lexical resource, which is vocabulary, is brilliant. And yeah, maybe just like a few small mistakes for grammatical range and accuracy that would lower you down to band 8.
Mhm.
Um, but and then for fluency and coherence, yeah, that's an interesting one. Either band 9 or band 8. But yeah, it's interesting that you've also noticed that probably your weak point out the four might be grammatical range and accuracy. But I mean, your weak point being band 8, which is kind of for 99% of the population somebody's strong point, you know?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And so Huda, another thing that I'm excited to share is you're going to be taking the lessons that you've learned in IELTS and in the past you've scored 8.5 in listening, you've scored band 8 in writing before, and 8.5 in speaking. It's actually amazing. You're going to be taking a lot of these lessons and helping other students, is that right?
Yes. I just want to help all students in all over the world to prepare for IELTS and to get their desired score. So, I've taken IELTS so many times, as you know, and each time when I got out from the test room, I knew that there would be one more time, or I knew that I would retake it. But this time I had some really good feelings, and I knew when I got out, I knew that I there wouldn't be next time. I knew that would be the last time taking IELTS. Yeah, and I
You know,
went from band seven or overall to band eight, which
is it?
is which is my desired score in the very first place.
That's amazing. Yeah, overall band 8 is amazing. And it's interesting you said like after the test, you felt like, yes, I nailed this, I got it. I even felt that about you the day before you did the test. Because do you remember we did like a mock speaking test
Yeah,
while you were getting ready to go to the test? And I was like, ooh, Huda's on form. She's on fire. I
yeah.
think she's gonna do very well.
Yeah, that really encouraged me. I believe that's really encouraged me, and it helped me to have more confidence because sometimes you feel that you're maybe not ready or you're not fully prepared for the test. But when I spoke to you and you gave me that band aid and you told me that you were on fire, yeah, I felt like my confidence went up. So that's why I went the next day and I did my best and I was glad that I got that 8.5 in speaking.
Yeah, that's true. So I gave you the band 8 the day before the test. You felt confident, then you went in the next day and got 8.5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And you're someone that's gone through a whole kind of myriad and gambit of emotions. In that, to begin with, you were quite stressed about doing the exam, and then over time you became more confident. Could you share any advice for people that do feel a little bit stressed now about the exam and want to get to the state that you were in before the exam, where you're confident and prepared?
Yeah, I think your mindset is really important when it comes to IELTS. So you should maintain that positive mindset before and while you are taking the test.
Mm,
So during your preparation, you should think like, okay, I can do it and I will do it. So don't think about anything negative or anything that can affect your thinking. So my advice is to all people who are listening right now is just be fully prepared and have some confidence and then go and take the test.
mm. Yeah, because
That's it.
when I spoke to you, you almost reminded me a bit of like an athlete, you know, like somebody who's about to go and play a football match or get into a boxing ring. You had this kind of like relaxed, calm, but focused demeanor. Are there any other tips or experiences that you would like to share for people watching this video?
Yeah, let me start first with the listening test.
Mhm.
Um, during my preparation, I used to do this. I used to listen to podcasts, and there are plenty of podcasts there on YouTube. So you can just pick one or two and just stick to that habit. Like, I told you it has become, for me, it has become more like a habit. And I just would listen to podcasts every day. When you are listening, you are not only improving your listening skills, but you are also improving your speaking skills. Because as you know, if you want to be a good speaker, you should, or if you want to be a good speaker, you should be a good listener. And if you want to be a good writer, you should be a good reader. So I believe that these four skills are really connected to each other. And if you improved one, the the next one or the second skill would be definitely improved. So yeah, for the listening, I used to do lots of practice tests from the Cambridge books,
Mm.
and I've become so familiar with them, so much though that when I had the practice test in front of me, I could remember that I made a mistake here, and that was the correct answer.
So it became almost like a memory game rather than a listening test.
Yeah, so I had to search for some alternative resources, and I found some from uh, the official Cambridge guide for IELTS. It was really helpful, and I found some new practice tips in that book. Yeah,
Mm. What do you think helps you more, the podcast or the practice tests, or was it a combination?
I think the two of them can help you
Mm.
because podcasts will you will you will make your ears more familiar to the language. You will listen to many different accents, many different speakers.
Mhm.
And I think you should actively listen to podcasts, just not listen for the sake of listening. You should actively listen. And you can work on your concentration skills also because concentration is key during the listening test. The practice tests are also important and just to be familiar with the test and how it gets progressively harder.
Yeah.
So I think it's both, yes.
Mm. Yes, and then, so that was listening. Would you like to mention any of the other components of the test?
Yeah, the reading section, I just read some articles online. And I think I told you that
Where did you get the articles from?
um, when you open Google, you can see that uh, at the bottom, or almost at the bottom of the page, you can see some articles. I just picked some topics that I'm interested in, and I told you that I'm interested in psychology and neuroscience. So I read about these topics, and I also read some news articles from The Guardian, from The Independent, and that helped me a lot to enrich my vocabulary. So I used to write down the vocabulary, the new vocabulary that I read about, and try to know the meanings of them.
Mm. And did you also do a lot of Cambridge practice tests for reading?
Yeah, sure. I did lots of practice tests. I think I did all the practice tests from book number 11 to 17.
Right. For general or general and academic?
Well, some of the tests I did were for general IELTS, but sometimes I just wanted to challenge myself. So I looked at the academic ones,
Mm,
and I used to do the first or the second text because, as you know, when we in the general IELTS we have the last passage or the last text is very similar to the first or to the second text that comes in academic IELTS.
mhm.
So yeah, I used to do some of them.
That's great. And that way you're also getting familiar with all the question types, like true, false, not given,
Yeah.
matching headings, all those tricky things. Um, and did you prioritize well, I guess we can talk a bit about writing and speaking, but did you prioritize one skill over the others? Did you say, "I'm gonna spend most of my time on reading or most of my time on speaking," or did you try and evenly, spread them out?
I focused mainly on my receptive skill because I knew that I had some problems there and I should do some extra work.
So
So
that
yeah,
just for
I just,
people listening, that's reading and listening.
yeah, reading and listening.
Mm,
So I just focused on these skills because I knew that I should do some little work on speaking and writing. So yeah, I focused on these two. But of course, I practiced all the skills together.
mm,
But for the writing and speaking, and in which I think I got the highest scores before, I knew that I just need some little work there.
yes. So what about the writing then? What advice would you give regarding writing?
Well, for the writing, I have lots of things to say actually,
Right, okay.
but
Mm,
you know, I said that before. I just want to stress that again. It's really important to be familiar with the essay structure and the essay types. And you can also take a course, a writing course that has a comprehensive, let's say, comprehensive information or details about the essay structure.
mm,
And I think it's really important to practice your writing and show your work to an expert who can help you to evaluate or to assess your writing because you won't be able to identify your mistakes by your own or on your own.
mm,
So, whenever I think about the writing, I remember the chain, the chain that has some metal rings that are
mhm,
joined together.
mm,
So your ideas in your essay should be like this. They should be relevant, organized, and well developed.
mm.
So I came up with an acronym. Maybe I think I'm not sure if it's there. ROW, ROW, relevant, organized, and well developed.
Ooh, I
So
love it.
your ideas should be raw.
Your ideas should be raw, relevant,
Yeah,
organized, and well developed. I love it.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah. That's it. Just keep your opinion clear. If you are asked to mention your opinion,
mm,
and try to practice during the time limit, because time in IELTS could be your worst enemy, and you should practice finishing your essay within 40 minutes,
yeah.
45 minutes maximum.
Yeah, and because well, this is for the general test. If for the academic test, maybe you want to spend a little less time on the essay and a bit more on task one, actually. But for the general, yes. And were you able to finish in good time? Did you have time to read over your essay and your letter?
This time I felt I ran out of time,
Right.
so I just read some parts of my writing in the letter and in the essay. So yeah, and this time I started with task two, and then I moved to do task one. but in the past I did it the other way around. I started with task one and then I moved to task
Mm.
two.
And
So just
which
find.
method do you find better?
I don't think there is a best or a better way. Just find what works for you and go for it.
Yeah, great. So we've covered listening, we've covered reading, we've covered writing, and I guess we've covered speaking in a way. Is there anything else you'd like to say about speaking or about preparation in general?
Yeah, I just wanna mention something about speaking. Um, Whenever I think about speaking, I remember that juggler, that guy you see in the circus,
Mm,
who is playing with the balls and doing his best not to drop any of the balls. And just imagine the balls are your vocabs and your grammar structures, and you should just play with the language, play with the words, play with the grammar. Of course, you should produce an accurate language during the speaking test. And just remember the juggler whenever you are preparing for IELTS speaking,
mm,
and practice as much as you can.
mm,
Remember, practice makes perfect or almost perfect.
yes.
So yeah, that's it. And be confident, believe in yourself, and just go for it.
Wonderful. And one quick question. So in I remember when we did part two before the speaking test, you told me this amazing story. I think about meeting Andy Murray, and I was like,
Yeah.
wow, I can't believe you met Andy Murray. And you was like, and then afterwards you were like, I invented it. I lied. So what about this story?
Yeah.
Was that true or was that also an invention?
The story I just told you about,
Yeah. About
well,
meeting the judge.
part of it was true, but the part that I talked about meeting him was absolutely incorrect.
Right. It's funny because yeah, so this time I was thinking, I was like, "Oh, I wonder if this is the truth." I started kind of smiling a little bit and trying to kind of work out if you were giving away any clues with your body language or with your eyes. But yeah, so I guess people can just remember that. They don't really need to tell a story that's true in part two. Um, I mean, I guess if you start lying, sometimes it's more difficult to lie and then to build up on your lies. But I mean, you did it very well there.
Yeah, it's not a test of your honesty, is it?
That's true.
So you can lie as much as you can. I guess it's a white lie.
Mm,
So yeah, if you feel like you are able to make up stories while you are on spot,
mm,
that's great. But if you feel like or if you think that the topic isn't familiar to you, you just lie and imagine that you were in this situation and just do your best to produce some impeccable language there.
yeah, great. And probably worth remembering is if you're going to lie, then at least practice. Well, if practice lying basically before you go into the test. Because
Yeah.
you don't want anything to be new in the test, whether it's like a new way to answer or a new method for writing your essay. Everything needs to be practiced and rehearsed before the test so that there are no surprises.
Yeah, and try to be realistic. Just
That's true.
don't,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's true.
don't give
If you
something really
told me
odd
in
to
part
avoid
one that
this.
you actually went to outer space, I would start getting a bit suspicious. 'Cause I went there last week. It was great. Yeah. Okay, Huda, thank you very much for coming on, for doing the speaking test, and for sharing your tips. What a great feeling to be getting your desired score, and it's so exciting that you're going to be training other people in IELTS.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And I just want to thank you because you've been with me during or throughout my journey. You were there from the very first beginning, and I just want to thank you. You were always there. I have
Oh,
learned a lot from you. Yeah,
well, I really appreciate that, Huda. Thank you very much.
thank you.